ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
Elmore deep, left side three is good! From 30 feet, John Elmore!
The Drive with Paul Swann.
We're coming to you today from our Monday destination. That is the Union Pub and Grill. We are at 1125 4th Avenue in Huntington, where, of course, every Monday is the legendary Monday special with $1.50 bottles, $2 call shots, and, of course, you got the best service in town. Taylor's taking good care of us today here at the Union Pub and Grill. We invite you to come out as well. I'm sure you can find something to get into as far as all the big screens they've got. Every single sports channel you want, we've got you covered here at the Union Pub and Grill. So welcome in. You're listening to the Monday edition of The Drive. Fun show planned for you. So coming up a little bit later on, we're going to talk Marshall basketball, but in a different way. One of the teams that would be contending for the Conference USA Championship in basketball would be Middle Tennessee. Well, they lost several of their key players a few days ago, so we're going to talk to Erik Bacharach from the Daily News Journal in a few minutes. He's going to give us an update on what's happening with the basketball program. That roster is not going to look anywhere near what it looked like a few months ago. They're going to have a whole new team just about. They'll have some returning players, but they're not going to have the potency that they had just a few months ago. So he's going to join us on the program, and, of course, we're going to open up the phone lines for you at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. Got a lot to get into. I think we'll start, though, with what happened a few days ago. Now, you know the green and white caravans going around, the Marshall Caravan, going to different destinations, and the point of this is, of course, to get fans fired up, get the alumni fired up, the donors, get everyone who's involved. And these are big, important events because, well, you're trying to re-energize that fan base. You're trying to re-energize the people who give and donate to your program. Well, at one of these events, the word baseball park came up again. So Mike Hamrick talking about a baseball park. This isn't new. We've heard this conversation before in different forms. Be it, okay, we need to find a location, we need to get the money. Yeah, there have been so many different discussions. And so Mike Hamrick, he definitely was not kidding around when he was in Princeton last week. He was at the Big Green Coaches Tour, and he said at that tour that we have built $45 million worth of facilities in the last 9 years, and hopefully in the next 3 or 4, we build another $30 million worth of new facilities to give our student athletes a great opportunity to be successful. And he says that we have some things on the burner right now. Now, what would that be? What would be on the burner for the Thundering Herd? Well, there's, of course, a baseball stadium that came up. So he alluded to another capital campaign coming up, and in the near future, that could raise funds for a baseball stadium. Of course, you know already the Cam Anderson Center is getting a new $1 million video scoreboard. That's coming in August, and he's probably gearing the fan base up right now to begin donating again to raise money to give fans what they want. I've heard so much about a baseball park. It's been the longest running joke at Marshall. Not to any one person's fault. It's just it has never gotten off the ground. And now he's making allusions to the fact that there's going to be another campaign. We're going to be raising funds to take Marshall to the next level, and a baseball park is part of that. And if that's the case, I think everyone who has ever complained about Marshall not having a baseball park should write a check right now. If you have complained at one time in your life that Marshall does not have a baseball park, a home baseball park, then open up your checkbook, write it down, however much you want to give, and give it to Marshall in whatever amount for that baseball park. Now, I didn't hear anything about maybe a joint venture with the city of Huntington, and I know there's been conversations, or at least there has been talk that maybe this should be a public-private venture. Maybe you should have a baseball facility that would include minor league baseball, and I hope that still is the plan. That is something I think would be completely viable for Huntington because you would have a facility that will get used by a minor league baseball team and Marshall. Now, Marshall might just want their own facility. Marshall might just be tired of waiting to get something like that off the ground. And I would hate to see a lesser facility. I don't want a facility that is lesser. I want something that is equal to or better than what's in Charleston and Morgantown. I would not accept a lesser facility because you've got an opportunity here to build a real first-class baseball facility, something that you could use to attract a minor league baseball. And, of course, you could use that as a bargaining chip to maybe bid on the state tournament. There are so many options. You know, you want to host a regional. Whatever the case may be, you need to build a first-class facility. And I don't know how much that's going to cost. And is it going to make sense to do something that will include a private entity or a minor league baseball organization doing something that's going to, one, give people Marshall baseball, and two, you've got minor league baseball that could take you the rest of the way. I mean, how great would it be on a Thursday evening, a Tuesday evening, a Wednesday evening? You know, just go down to the ballpark and watch some baseball. I mean, you would get a chance to do that with Marshall. Marshall would have a better control of its schedule and be able to control most of its destiny. You know, you, of course, work. If you have a minor league baseball team, you want to work with them as well. And I think you could, depending on who's the primary and who's the secondary. And then I think maybe Marshall's looking at, okay, we're just going to build a facility. We're going to put together a world-class facility. We're going to control this. No longer will Marshall baseball be anybody's joke. These young men who have struggled for years, who have gone out, put their very best foot forward to play the best baseball they can for Marshall, will finally have a facility of their own. I mean, it's embarrassing, really. Again, I'm not pointing fingers at any one entity at Marshall or the city of Huntington, but it's just embarrassing that Marshall and the city of Huntington do not have a baseball park. This is something that we have talked about for years. I have talked about it until I'm sick and tired of talking about it, and I'm still going to talk about it because I have to push on. It has to happen. This needs to be something that is a priority. If there's going to be another capital campaign, and I think Mike Hamrick's priorities are in the right place. He wants to get that thing built. And so if it's going to be a partnership with the city, if it's going to be a partnership with a private entity, all the better. If it's not, then get it built. Just build it and finally have some worthy facilities of having a Division I baseball program. So that's what's coming up in the near future. Hopefully, we're going to hear more about that, I'm sure, in the weeks and months to come. Right now, though, I think what's happening is you've got your athletic director out talking to the fans, talking to the alumni, talking to the people who donate the money, and just getting them ready, priming them a little bit, saying, look, this is what's on the horizon. We've got to make it happen. Be ready. We're going to have another capital campaign. I mean, look what the Vision campaign has done. I think the indoor facility has benefited maybe the rest of Marshall athletics more so than the football team. I don't know if you could take away that facility and have the same level of success you've had as of late for some of these programs. Football, everybody's got an indoor facility, so you need the facility to keep up. But you can do so much more with it, and I think it's really helped the other sports. Not all of them, obviously. You don't have an analog for some of the sports to go in there and use that facility, but you've got an indoor practice facility. You can do things in the off-season. You can do things in the wintertime when you can't get out. It helps track, immensely helps track, and I hope to see track grow as well. We'd like to see track finally grow, and we have outdoor track. Not just indoor track, outdoor track as well. That's another wish, but baseball comes first. We turn our attention to Conference USA basketball. When we come back from break, we're going to talk a little bit to Erik Bacharach. We're going to get an update on what's happening with Middle Tennessee, and, of course, later on we'll take your phone calls. We're coming to you today from the Union Pub and Grill, 1125 4th Avenue in Huntington, where today the Monday special, which is always happening on Monday, $1.50 bottles and $2 call shots. Take advantage of that special now here at the Union Pub and Grill. More on the way. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We're coming to you today from the Union Pub and Grill. We invite you every Monday to join us. It is 1125 4th Avenue in Huntington. And, of course, as always, best service in town. Taylor's going to take good care of you. She will be here until probably close, if not after. We'll take good care of everyone here We will see you today at the Union Pub and Grill. Let's turn our attention now to basketball. Now, one of the teams that was supposed to be a serious contender for the Conference USA Championship coming up would have been Middle Tennessee. I think you can put them, Western Kentucky, you can also put Marshall and a couple other teams in that group that would definitely be fighting for the top spot. Well, things are changing drastically for Middle Tennessee, and to give us a little bit more insight on that so we can sort of figure out what's going on is Erik Bacharach. He now joins us on the program. And Erik, of course, you cover Middle Tennessee all year long. And have you ever seen so crazy like this that all of a sudden all of your best players are either transferring or dismissed in such a quick time frame?
No, Paul, I really haven't. The turnover is just, as you just alluded to, it's quite remarkable, especially when you compare, what this team had last year on its roster versus what it actually has right now. If you go onto MTSU's website, there's 7 players listed there, only three of which had more than 8 minutes per game last year. None of those 3 averaged more than 4 points a game. So you pretty much bring back a group with no experience, no to little experience. You've got a new coaching staff, and pretty much all the leadership from a year ago is gone, either to graduation or, as you just mentioned, we've had a flurry of transfers in the past week for players who figured to be prominent members, prominent contributors this upcoming season. Antoine Johnson was probably going to be the team's leading scorer, or was poised for that role. He had Tyreek Dixon, who started probably 95% of MTSU's games at point guard the past 2 years. He was going to be a junior this upcoming season. So you just lose a lot of talent. And for Nick McDevitt, the new coach who was hired here just a couple months ago, this is obviously the way he's got to look at it. It's a chance to now he's got a chance to build his program his way. I'm sure this is the circumstance he wanted for it, but there's really no positive way to spin sort of the start that has sort of just transpired his first few months.
So what started all this? What was the first domino to fall that make all of this happen?
Well, when this first happened, Friday is when we had 3 players within minutes of each other announced that they were going to transfer. Before that, a couple days earlier, you had David Simmons, this sort of quintessential X factor off the bench for MTSU. Only averaged about 5 points a game, but he was a really important piece for them. Played big minutes in a couple of really big games down the stretch for them. He announced that he was going to transfer earlier last week. He said he cited playing time and looking for a bigger role is his reasoning for that. And that at the time seemed like an isolated incident. And then a couple of days later, you have 3 guys all at once announced that they were going to transfer. And the initial reaction to that is oh my God, why are all these guys leaving? What about the program is, forcing their hand and making them want to look elsewhere? And then just about an hour or 2 later, MTSU released a statement from Nick McDevitt that said, the players had been dismissed for violating team policies, university policies. So when you look at that, it's obviously, I spoke with McDevitt that day, and he said those were hard choices that he had to make. Obviously, it's for the program. He said that they're losing a good deal of talent. It's in no way a good thing for the program, but it's something that he felt he had to do because of the culture he's trying to cultivate there. As a first-year coach, to him, he said it was pretty much a no-brainer that these decisions had to be made. So, when you look at that, I think all of it combines. You look at what this team was last year, a perennial contender, coming into a year in which they were the favorite, going into the Conference USA tournament, they were the favorite. And even when they were knocked out early by Southern Miss in the first round of the conference tournament, they were thought to potentially have a chance to earn an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament. You look at this year's team, this upcoming season's team, and it's a shadow, if that, of its former self, pretty much unrecognizable from last year's group. And I mean, right now, I don't think you could put them up there with the Marshalls and the Western Kentuckys, just with what those teams have coming back talent-wise, and just how many question marks are surrounding MTSU's team right now. I mean, they only have 9 players on scholarship. They still have to go out and get a couple more guys. So there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of question marks that really will only be answered once the season starts.
Erik Bacharach joining us from the Daily News Journal, and I guess my question is, what was so bad? What did they do? Do we know that precipitated all this change?
Yeah, those details we're still working to find out. Just from speaking with McDevitt, whatever it was something that it forced his hand. Obviously he didn't want to be in a position where he had to let go of or dismiss who was probably going to be their top scoring option in Antoine Johnson, and Davian Thomas, the other player, dismissed. He didn't have a significant role last year, but he was a redshirt freshman. He was poised to take on a much bigger role this year when you consider what MTSU lost to graduation. They lost Brandon Walters, Giddy Potts, Nick Kane, who was Conference USA Player of the Year, and Ned Simpson, 4 seniors that were starters that, talent-wise, for how good MTSU has been, the past few years, that group might have been the most talented, of the recent MTSU teams that have fared well. So, just losing that alone was going to be a huge blow. And Kermit Davis even referred to sort of what was going to happen for MTSU this upcoming season as a rebuilding thing during his last post-game press conference with MTSU before he left for Ole Miss. So, it was going to be an uphill battle for Nick McDevitt and his staff, from Jump Street. But, then you consider you lose David Simmons, and then a couple days later you lose these 3 guys, again, for violating what they called university and team policies. And on top of that, MTSU also lost what was arguably the best signing class of probably the past 2 decades. There was 3 members of that, all from Georgia. And when Kermit Davis left, all those guys asked for and were granted their releases. So, they were poised to replenish the talent that they lost with all those graduating seniors, with that really impressive 2018 signing class. But all those guys are gone too. So, from the start, it was going to be an uphill battle, but, things have only gotten rockier, as we've gotten a few months into Nick McDevitt's tenure.
Erik, what's been the fan reaction? I'm sure there's a lot of fans who maybe aren't on board with this. Others maybe are looking at this for the good of the program. Where's that reaction fall, or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think it's split. I certainly think you've got, people looking at all this and thinking the sky is falling, just with, so much that has gone wrong just within the first couple of months. But, then there are other people that are, looking at this like there was only so much McDevitt could do. It's natural for a signing class to want to explore their options after a coaching change. MTSU was going to lose those players to graduation, obviously, those 4 that I mentioned. And then when you look at the recent dismissals, he did what he had to do. A lot of people are looking at that as, he's putting his foot down early, kind of making a statement of sorts. And some fans appreciate that. Some fans are, looking at the fact that they lost a really significant chunk of talent and wondering where this team is going to be, in a few months when the season gets going. So I'd say split reactions. Again, I think a lot of people are still kind of willing to give this thing, more than just a couple months to see how it plays out. Again, he was just hired in March, and certain things were out of his hands, and certain things are kind of just the nature of college basketball at this point, with players looking for transfers and signing classes looking elsewhere after a coaching change. But I think it's a mix between just sort of wanting to give McDevitt more time and reacting to the fact that they lost a big chunk of talent and being unsure of how good this team is going to be next year.
Erik Bacharach is our guest from the Daily News Journal, and I guess the question now is, do we know where the transfers are going to land? Is there any indication of where this trio might go? Are they going to try to package themselves together? Are they just going their separate ways? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, Antoine and Davian are really close, and in fact, those two players, when they announced on Twitter that they were transferring, they had the same exact message verbatim, in which they didn't really say much, just that, they thanked MTSU and Murfreesboro for the memories and that sort of thing. And, then they said they were going their separate ways. But, after sort of being dismissed, it'll be interesting. Right now, I've got no indication of where they're going. To my knowledge, all of this sort of came to light recently within, the past, I guess, 2 weeks or so. So I'm sure for them, it's kind of, they're at the point where they're figuring everything out still. So, it'll be interesting to see where they land. Antoine Johnson is, like I've said, he's a premier scorer. He could get to the lane. He could recreate his own shot. He averaged about 10 points a game last year, and that was with, a really loaded MTSU roster with a lot of depth. I think he was poised to average above 15 points, maybe 17 or 18 for MTSU this year, honestly. So whoever picks him up is going to get a steal. And then Tyreek Dixon, he's a guy with a lot of experience at point guard for MTSU. Toward the end of the year, Kermit Davis was kind of favoring Donovan Sims, a freshman at point guard. But it was, for the most part, it was kind of a timeshare between the two of them. So Dixon will be a valuable addition as well. And then, as I said about Davian Thomas, a guy with not a whole ton of playing experience, but he was poised to sort of take the next step for MTSU this year. So it'll be interesting to see where all these guys land. Hard to say right now as far as specifically where they might go, but there are three, varying levels of talent there that, would be valuable addition to any program.
See, Erik, I was hoping you would give me a scoop and tell me that Marshall's Dan D'Antoni was in contact here, just because if I'm a Conference USA school right now, I'm on the phone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially if you could scoop up some of these guys and turn these weapons against it the next year. But yeah, I mean, kind of just looking at where MTSU is now, it's just remarkable. Year to year. Sort of the expectations. It's hard to say what the expectations are right now, just because there's so many question marks, so many unknowns, so many players that right now we don't even know what the roster is going to look like in a few months, just with a couple more guys that they have to sign. So around the conference, like I said before, I think MTSU is a clear couple steps behind Marshall and Western Kentucky right now.
Erik Bacharach is joining us from the Daily News Journal. We're recapping what has happened to Middle Tennessee with the loss of not one but three of their key players for the upcoming season. And on top of that, things just got a little harder in Conference USA because the new scheduling format, after a certain point, the standings are locked into pods, and then Middle's got to go on the road and play at home the best teams, depending on where they're at. They're in that upper pod. So it just got harder in Conference USA, so that's almost another blow for anybody trying to get to the top spot, or at least make a serious run early on in this tournament. Because, we all depend on those last-minute games. Okay, maybe Middle can win these last two or three, Marshall can win these last two or three, and eke their way up. And now you got to win early and often just to be in the top echelon when they lock the standings.
Right, there's a lot less room for error for a team like MTSU when you want to get in that top tier So I guess sort of unfortunate timing with that. I know on the whole, I think people are looking at this like it's obviously an innovative thing that you kind of say. Obviously, it's geared toward giving the top teams a better RPI, and then you look at what happened last year with a bunch of teams. I think it was 3 teams, including MTSU, in something like the top 70 of the RPI at the end of the year, and none of them made the tournament. So you say, how much could something like this help? But it's obviously encouraging to see the conference do something, or think along the lines of just being innovative to try and, I guess, move the needle at least somewhat to try and help those top teams with a better shot at the end of the year. But if you're MTSU, it's pretty much a shorter season to try and just get in that top tier, because those last 4 games are pretty much a tournament unto themselves, with the top couple of teams playing against each other. So there's going to be less room for error for MTSU early. They're going to have to play well, those first few weeks of the season, first 7 weeks, whatever it is. So there's less margin for error, and the non-conference season is going to be really important for MTSU, especially this upcoming season. Not even, I think from boosting their RPI and that sort of thing, which obviously it is, but just with meshing and kind of coming together as a unit, because this is going to be a team that doesn't have a lot of prior experience, in-game experience with each other. So it'll be interesting. The scheduling change is just another wrinkle, and I think I would agree right now, probably not in MTSU's favor, just given the fact that they'll have less margin for error.
Erik Bacharach is our guest from the Daily News Journal. Before we let you go, Erik, kind of curious, with everything that's going on now, football, of course, is going to be its own thing, but with the basketball brand, do you think this is just going to be a road bump, or is this going to be really damaging to the brand, you think?
It's kind of hard to say. To me, I think it'll be maybe a little bit of a protracted speed bump. I don't think it's going to completely derail the program by any means. But it certainly takes a hit to some extent, I think, because they're not going to be, they're not going into the season as the top team like they have been the past few years. So they're going to be one of the, hopefully top few teams fighting for it. But when you look at what Kermit Davis had sort of established the past few years, they were sort of the team to beat in Conference USA. And with that came, all the talk of national brand and making the tournament. But I think it's just a natural thing for the program to hit a bit of a speed bump, in light of a coaching change, in light of losing 4 crucial seniors. And then, again, you throw in the fact that they're losing a lot of depth with everything that's happened in the past week. I think it certainly takes a little bit of a hit, but, I'd probably call it more of a speed bump now, until we get into the season and we kind of have a clearer picture of exactly what this team is going to look like.
Erik Bacharach, our guest. You can follow him, of course, on Twitter at Erik Bacharach. He covers Middle Tennessee. Erik, thanks for talking to us again. It's been good to catch up with you, and let's hope that everything is going well here in the future. That's Erik Bacharach, covers Middle Tennessee, and, of course, it's an interesting story right now. You look for stories in the summertime to cover if you're a sports writer or a broadcast journalist, and sometimes you get them delivered right in your lap. Unfortunately, it's not a good story right now for Middle Tennessee, but definitely one worth following. We'll take our next time out. We'll come back and we'll rejoin you here from the Union Pub and Grill, where today it's $1.50 bottles, $2 call shots, every single Monday at 1125 4th Avenue in Huntington. It is the Union Pub and Grill. More on the way. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Now, back to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We're coming to you today from the Union Pub and Grill. Every Monday we are here for $1.50 bottles, $2 call shots, and of course the best service in town, 1125 4th Avenue in Huntington. Always appreciate the folks here at the Union Pub and Grill taking good care of us and hosting us on Mondays. Welcome back to The Drive. I'm your host, Paul Swann, here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. It was fun to talk to Erik Bacharach just a few minutes ago from the beat of Middle Tennessee. Of course, he covers the beat for Daily News Journal, and good catching up with him on what's happening with Middle Tennessee. I was really hoping that Middle, Western Kentucky, a few other teams in Conference USA would be their usual good self, just because I think this league deserves a couple more bids. I think at least two bids. I think this should be a two-bid league every year. 3 would be great. I'm hoping the new scheduling will help in that regard. I'm not sure if it's just a innovative way to get people to talk about your league, and then maybe you get that second one. But middle hurts right now. If you don't have a good middle in this league, I think that hurts. You need a good middle. You need a good Western Kentucky. I think those teams bring a lot from when they were coming over from the Sun Belt. You need a good Marshall. I think Marshall is a natural to help lead this league. As far as attention, there's an inherent interest in Marshall, not just in Huntington and the area. It's really a team that generates some interest among people across the country. And, of course, the NCAA tournament definitely helped generate more there. And I'm glad that we're seeing more being put back into basketball. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, when Marshall University Athletic Director Mike Hamrick was speaking in Princeton, alluded to a new campaign that's coming up, mentioning the fact that he's raised this amount of money and now we're going to try to raise some more, and baseball could be in charge of that. And the Henderson Center is getting a slight upgrade. I don't know what else is going to go on with it, so let me walk that back just a little bit. You're getting a scoreboard. You're getting a big scoreboard. You're getting an improved scoreboard that's going to increase your potential for, of course, the fan experience, and of course revenue as well. You can make money with the scoreboard, throwing things up there for advertisers to reach the herd crowd. Yeah, it's a good proposition. Now, that's just a small upgrade. You want to know what kind of upgrade they're doing in Cincinnati? It's going to reopen this fall. Fifth Third Arena. Cincinnati's Fifth Third Arena is going to have 36 new LED video boards. And it's also going to have more than 7 million LEDs among those boards. 36 new LED boards, 7 million LEDs, and 5,700 square feet of displays venue-wide. The new video experience includes a 9-display center-hung LED video display with an accompanying halo ring, 4 additional LED boards in the east and west upper level sideline areas, 4 ring LED boards on each of the 4 corner pillars of the arena, ribbon boards both courtside and encircling the concourse seating, and the exterior LED marquee display will be on the east side of the facility. That's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see what that would look like. Now, Marshall's not in that hemisphere just yet. Difference there in revenue and resources, but think of it. Maybe you're not going to get a new arena anytime soon, so what can you do to the Henderson Center to spruce it? Do you go all in? Do you go all in and decide, okay, we're not going to get a new arena anytime soon, so let's just LED this thing? What kind of experience would it be if you went in and just redid the Henderson Center? The concourse areas and everything. Locker rooms are pretty new, but you're going to redo everything, spruce it up completely. What would you do differently if you're going to remodel the Henderson Center? That's sort of my project for you this week. And yes, I'm sure I'm going to get the comment again because, boy, I do like talking about facilities and building things now and then, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. I accept that because I think you could do some fun things with the Henderson Center. What about the wall? Instead of the banners, take the banners down and just make that one big video wall. That's probably not going to happen, but that could be a huge Lego Light Bright here or something. I don't know what you would do there. Let's go take our final break. We'll come back. We're joining you today from the Union Pub and Grill. We remind you, $1.50 bottles, $2 call shots all day, all night. Thanks for joining us today. Coming back for the last segment when we continue, we'll get your phone calls in at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. More on the way. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Don't worry. Paul Swann has the wheel on The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
So I've been avoiding the World Cup. I'm not among the millions of you watching the World Cup. Sorry, I've been avoiding it. I unfortunately did stumble upon Mexico and Germany. I did watch a little bit of that. So I'm sorry. I'm guilty of that. But I'm not your source for World Cup soccer. But I did find a World Cup soccer story that interested me enough to talk about it. So, how would you feel if your country was so behind your team? I mean, how would you feel? You'd probably feel full of pride. You would be excited, overwhelmed that almost everyone in your country is supporting you and your efforts. And it appears to be what's happening with Iceland right now. Iceland had a draw with Argentina, and I'm not even going to argue that, a draw, how non-exciting that is. But Iceland, 99.6% of TV viewers in Iceland watch their team's World Cup game. That's how big it is right now for Iceland. I mean, they battle to a epic 1-1 tie, a draw with Argentina, and they get a point. It was their first ever World Cup match, so their first time there, they get a point against one of the best teams in the country, a two-time World Cup champion, mind you, in Argentina. And then you get Iceland. Iceland they're not a soccer country. They don't have history. Right, they're in there. United States isn't. They're there. United States not. So obviously a better soccer team right now than the United States. But here's a team that shouldn't even be there. They're not a soccer nation. They're there, and they just were able to play even with one of the best teams in the country, with arguably one of the best players in the game, the LeBron James of soccer, Lionel Messi. It was to the point where Messi was being guarded, defended by a guy who, you know what he did? He was a salt packer at a warehouse. That was his run-up to this soccer tournament that he's in right now. And you've got a country. Iceland has about 334,000 people. That's it. 334,000 people. So they shouldn't even be here. And 99.6% of all those TVs that were on, they're watching this right now. That's crazy. So I don't know. Maybe I'm going to root for Iceland. I mean, I'm definitely not rooting for Mexico because Landon Donovan told me to. Did you see this? Landon Donovan is in a little trouble right now because, well, if you follow any soccer news whatsoever, if you follow anything, you know that United States and Mexico are soccer rivals. These are the two teams that go after each other in this portion of the world. I mean, even I knew that. And so Landon Donovan, what else has he got to do? He's got nothing to do right now. Why? Because the United States didn't make this thing. And so a lot of people kind of have fun picking on, I don't know if they're picking on the United States. I've seen the commercials. Hey, won't you root for us, United States, since, well, you don't have a team in, so won't you root for us? We're pretty cool, too. I mean, that's cool marketing. I mean, that's good marketing. And if I'm Fox, I am definitely marketing to Mexico. I am definitely pumping them up because you're going to have a core amount of your audience. You're going to have a good group of your audience tuning in for that. Makes perfect sense here. But then you've got one of the defenders of the faith, one of the pillars of your national soccer team here, Landon Donovan here, and here's a guy. He's involved with Wells Fargo ads. Apparently, not smart on his part because he is taking some criticism because of what he put out there. His other team is Mexico, and obviously, he's getting some cash. He's getting a little kickback. Did not work out for him. Here is the tweet. He tweeted this out. You grew up in Southern California and owe much of your soccer skill to playing with Mexicans. Your father is of Mexican descent. Look around our country. Are you happy with how we are treating Mexicans? Open your mind. Stand for something. Remember where you came from. Okay. And then he puts out the picture. He's got the soccer scarf. My other team is Mexico. I don't know if this is the right guy I want representing Mexico. I don't know if this is the guy who's supposed to be a defender of the faith for United States soccer. And he's taking some criticism because, well, it gets nasty between those two. Mexico, United States, it's not... it's the soccer equivalent of Marshall, West Virginia, maybe? Possibly? We'll explore that further in days to come. For our producer, Gabriel Sellards, I'm Paul Swann. Thanks for everyone here taking care of us at the Union Pub and Grill, where it's $1.50 bottles and $2 call shots every Monday. All you have to do is get down to 1125 4th Avenue in Huntington. That's going to do it for this edition of The Drive. Until tomorrow, good night, everyone.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Huntington Sports Station.